The Daily Dribble.
And welcome back to the Daily Dribble podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammit. Here joining me on a Friday night is Mr. Lee Hancock.
Hello, guys.
And Mr. Ro Hancock.
How we going, Nick?
Gentlemen, what a week of playoff basketball. We are now officially in the second round. The teams have been cut by half. We are now down to the final 8 teams remaining, vying it out for the right to call themselves NBA champion for season 2022-2023. What an incredible week of action.
It's been a box office dream so far this second round, hasn't it?
Oh, printing money.
Some of these matchups, LeBron versus Steph, you got the highly anticipated, we were talking about it all last week, 76ers versus Boston, but New York making it out of the first round since probably before Christ, you know. It's been absolutely...
It's been a little while. And Denver and Phoenix as well.
Yeah, it's buzzing.
Yeah, look, there's been all the contests in their own individual way, regardless of who's won, have been really enticing so far. And if this is sort of a sign of the next few rounds after this, and even the NBA finals this year, we're in for a treat, I think.
It doesn't get any better, guys. As I said, a massive show in store today. Going to recap very quickly some odds and ends momentarily before we get into just a bit of a general chat between a couple of mates, a couple of basketball heads here, just discussing our key takeaways so far from the second round, what's played out over the course of the last 7 days. So very excited to getting into that with you guys momentarily. Before we do so, though, a big shout out to both Stadium Scene and The Cover. I say it week in and week out. Very, very thankful to be a part of those two terrific networks, doing wonderful things for not only us, but a whole host of other content creators. Very thankful for all their continued support, especially as the season ramps up to its climax here at the moment. So a big thank you to those two networks. Guys, without further ado, let's get into some odds and ends here quickly. Starting with the news, after being bounced in the first round by the Lakers, the Memphis Grizzlies have informed none other than the NBA's probably most heated villain at the moment, Dillion Brooks, that under no circumstances will he be returning to the squad next season. Now, fellas, he's the longest-serving member on this current iteration of the Grizzlies roster. He's averaged 14 points, 3 rebounds, 2.5 assists this season, whilst also probably becoming the most hated player in the league, probably on par with Grayson Allen there.
Yes.
But for you guys, where would you like to see him end up? For me, I'm thinking China, hanging out with the Jingzhou Dragons or something of the kind.
What did Shaq say?
He's
Guangdong Tigers.
The Shandong Tigers. But what do you think, guys? Like, is there... You know, for as much as he's hated and, you know, he's gone out in a blaze of glory at the moment to the Lakers, you know, his comments age well there. Where would you like, do you think he still has a spot in the league, firstly, Lee? And if so, where would you like to see him off the top of the scone?
Somewhere where he's coming off the bench.
Off the bench?
I think.
You reckon?
Like, first thing that comes to mind is perhaps Rockets.
You see, that's the team I had down as well.
Yeah, as that little spark off the bench, or just to give them some defensive tenacity. Like, it was a brutal way that he went out with the Grizzlies, but you can see why after the comments he'd made all year. At the start of the season, he turned down multiple offers by the Grizzlies and supposedly wanted a bigger offensive role, which... With his play style offensively, he wasn't going to get there.
Way too many shots. Like he was averaging, I think it was 22 points last season. Yeah, he was just throwing up shots like they were going out of fashion. So it toned back a little bit this year with, you know, the continued rise of Desmond Bane and things like that. But I guess for yourself, Ro, I agree with Lee. I had the Rockets. I think under Udoka, he could help kind of guide this very young core that they've got at the moment. Are there any other teams that you can think of that you'd like to see venture into, possibly?
Look, off the top of the head, I would say a team, and probably an irrelevant team, and a team that won't be vying for championship contention next year. Now, I don't know a specific team. Maybe, as you guys were saying, the Houston Rockets might be that team. But I think if you're contending for a championship and you've got Dillion Brooks on your team, you've automatically got a target on your back.
Yep.
And I don't think that's ideal. And we saw what happened with the Memphis Grizzlies. When you do have that target on your back and then you fail, the loss in that series is magnified just due to the behavior of him throughout the regular season. So
could OKC be another team, possibly? Again, another very young core. Chet Holmgren coming back. You know, they've got a lot of young bodies there. Maybe Brooks, you know, not only adding a little more offensive firepower, on the defensive end as well. Again, just being a part of a young core and nurturing them a little bit more so.
I think so. And I think the fact of the matter is, regardless of where he goes, he can't be anywhere close to as much of a focal point as he was for the Memphis Grizzlies. We know he wasn't the focal point, but he had far too big of a role for mine on that team.
Yep.
And it should have been a team that was led primarily from Ja Morant. But the fact of the matter was, he was chucking up probably about 10 more shots than he really should have been at any stage. So
in Brooks's mind on the Grizzlies, he would have thought he was the second option, I reckon. But he's not even the third. He's not even the fourth, in my opinion. But he's
probably the fourth. He'd be behind Triple J, Desmond Bain, and Jar there.
Yeah.
He's probably the fourth guy.
I don't like your OKC pick, Nick. I think OKC are becoming too well structured that he might become more of a bit of a risk to take him on board.
Absolutely. I agree with the Houston. Just throwing names out there.
Detroit, I like as well.
Detroit.
For him.
There will certainly be options. Just from hearing talks over the last day or two, there are going to be offers put forth to him. But hopefully, this news and this kind of reckoning can be a bit of a catalyst for him. Just kind of changing his ways a little bit. Not only one of the most hated players in the league at the moment. I know he can't help this. One of the most punchable faces in the league as well. Bless his little cotton socks. But as we saw him flame out, hopefully this can start to turn around his fortunes. Moving ahead, just touching on Game 7 of the first round there, the Sacramento Kings against the Golden State Warriors. Just wanted to touch on Steph Curry, and he's a player that we'll probably touch on more a little bit throughout the episode. He had an all-time performance in Game 7 there over the Kings. The Warriors won this 120-100. Steph Curry set a new NBA record for most points scored in a Game 7 by dropping 50 on the Kings' head. He also had 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and was plus 25 when on the court. It was just an incredible showing. And I think, there's the debate coming in at the moment. Is he the greatest point guard of all time? I think he's really staking his claim to it. If you're looking at probably between him and Magic at the moment, who knows what will happen? They're in a possibility of winning another title this year, potentially another finals MVP, getting a little bit far ahead of myself there. But is he, do you think, in your mind, the greatest point guard in NBA history at the moment?
Well, I guess for mine personally, it's a difficult one because you're comparing chalk and cheese in terms of skill sets and different strengths and weaknesses. But I mean, when it's all said and done, particularly if he does win another championship with these Warriors, he would have to be right in the conversation with the Magic Johnson as the other sort of obvious point guard choice. But
both have revolutionized the game, probably more prevalent and especially recency bias. Curry with the becoming the greatest shooter of all time and the emergence of the 3-point stroke there. Do you have him right there with Magic Lee, or do you have him above?
I have him above Magic.
So greatest point guard of all time.
I'd put him there. He's got the resume, he's got the chips. How many more times are we going to say, if he wins one more championship, is he the greatest?
We've been saying that about LeBron as well.
We said that last year about Steph, and he won again.
We're never happy as basketball fans. We always want more.
Deep dive, and this could be a whole episode in its own right, so we won't touch on it for too long. Top 5 of all time?
What point guards? Geez.
No, top 5 player of all time.
Who's Steph?
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak on that.
Not for mine. Not yet. Not yet.
No. Still plenty more chapters to write in his career. What is he, 35, I believe, if memory serves correctly.
And the thing with Steph is he could really play into his 40s because he doesn't. I think we've spoken about it time and time again. He doesn't need to be running as much as he does. He can just be a spot up shooter.
Imagine having that as a weapon. A spot up shooter. It doesn't matter if he's 38, 39, 40. He's going to be able to put up buckets.
Yes.
That shot's not going to fail him, I wouldn't think.
Never.
So
on this Game 7, I think there's a select number of players, a very few amount of players in the league that when push comes to shove, they can turn it on. And the two that comes to mind is Steph and LeBron. But Jesus, he turned it on. He
put this team on his back. And I don't know if you guys heard the speech that he gave before the game. He pretty much said, for anyone, if they didn't believe they could win this game, don't bother getting on the bus. Yeah. He single-handedly carried this team and this franchise to the second round. It was truly a phenomenal showing. And, No, you can use all the superlatives in the world to describe him. He's truly a generational player.
Yep.
It's just awesome to witness. So incredible performance there from Chef Curry. In news coming to light just today, hot off the press, Mike Budenholzer. Now, we speculated about it the other week. His seat was well and truly on fire.
It's toasty, wasn't it?
Coach Bud has been officially fired as head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, thus ending his tenure. Got a title a couple of years ago, flamed out in the first round this year. But, you know, we saw it coming, didn't we? The writing was on the wall. It was kind of a matter of not if, but when. And they've made the choice now to go into their preseason clean slate and build from the ground up once again.
It's just one of the most thankless jobs, I think, head coach in the NBA. Like
in any sport.
In
like,
any
if you look
sport.
in the Premier League as well, it is so cutthroat. The NBA as well. Like if you've got to be on it from the word go.
You almost think with the Milwaukee Bucks, if they hadn't have made the finals, almost perhaps even if they didn't make the Eastern Conference Finals, that his job would have been up for grabs. And, you know, as it turned out, the first round exit was always going to result in this, unfortunately. But it seems, to me, it seems a little bit harsh for the simple fact that he has been such a solid coach throughout the last few years, and they have one down year and he's out.
I agree with that to a certain extent. I think as well, and we spoke about it a little more so last week, guys. If you haven't checked out that episode, be sure to catch up. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts, well worth a listen to that to hear our takes. But I think there were quite a few system failures and coaching breakdowns, especially in that Game 7 and throughout the course of the series that really undid him.
What we have to take into account as well, and I'm assuming you guys have heard that his family member passed away right before that Game 7. So his mind, I feel sorry for him because his mind wouldn't have been in that game, and you have to take that kind of thing into account because
seems as if the front office didn't take that into account.
Well, they certainly didn't, did they? But like you look at his, I guess, foggy brain throughout the course of that.
Yeah. It certainly comes into play, doesn't it?
Makes sense a little bit more now, but yeah.
Do you think, Lee, they'll start to, a fresher coach coming in, they'll shake things up with the Bucks roster, or are you quite happy with where they're poised at the minute and you just maybe accredit this loss? Giannis with the back injury certainly hindered them and just an off series, or do you kind of retool now?
No, I think you pretty much
that's an old core, the oldest core in the league.
Yeah. If you make any roster changes, it'll be few. I don't think personally they should make any changes. I'm happy they did.
Speed round then. Here you go, Lee.
Okay, go.
Keep or get rid of? Giannis.
Keep.
Absolutely. Chris Middleton.
Keep.
Keep, bro.
Both keep.
The Ferris wheel.
Yes.
The Chris Middleton experience, we're going to keep him. All right.
Keep him.
Drew Holiday.
Have to keep him. He'll retire.
Brook Lopez.
Soon. Brook Lopez, you have to keep.
Yeah,
he's been really good. Bobby Portis.
You're keeping
him.
Grayson Allen.
Who wants him?
Yeah,
Not
I mean,
me.
but he does provide a role. He does hit those spots.
He is a role player. Yeah.
As much as we hate him, he does do a job.
Well, he wasn't good in this series. I'm going to say get rid of Grayson.
See, there's one I'm going to disagree on, and I think potentially, I had a lot of really good conversations with our listeners during the week on a few different topics. I reckon this one might get a little bit of backlash. I think the Milwaukee Bucks next season, should I say, the Milwaukee Bucks should look at offloading Chris Middleton. I think when we saw him out of the squad and Drew Holiday step up as that number 2 guy, I just think it really unlocked him offensively. And I think him and Giannis as the 1 and 2. With what they're paying Chris Middleton, I think they could retool around the edges and get still a really high-level capable player. But that would be my move, I think, just to shake things up a little bit.
There's just a big void in your roster if you get rid of Middleton, though. I mean,
but you can refill it, and it's next man up mentality. I think
you're going to need to fill it with exactly what Chris Middleton is
on a cheaper contract that might give a little bit more scope for potential, bench moves as well.
I mean,
he's getting paid a fortune.
You need another closer. Which closer
do you?
Yes. I mean,
how many closers do you want? How many blokes can have the ball?
Giannis isn't a closer. Drew isn't a closer.
Drew's a closer.
No, he's not. Chris Middleton is that team's closer.
Drew's not a closer.
He may be a bit inconsistent, but you take Chris Middleton out of that roster and a game comes down to the wire. I'm not looking at the Bucks and thinking, yeah, they're winning that game. You need Chris
I wish
Middleton
I
as
had
that
the
closer.
stat now. I reckon Drew Holiday has been one of the most clutch players in the league over the last couple of years. Granted, he missed a couple of free throws in that game 7. Yep. Despite that, he has been money. Ro, where do you weigh in on this one?
Is Drew Holiday a closer? He has shown the ability to close over the last few years. There's no doubt about that. But I think regarding Chris Middleton, I think regardless of if you keep him or get rid of him, I still think there are a few pieces short. Like I don't know who they have to get rid of, but I still think they're lacking something. And if they did get rid of Chris Middleton, they have to fill that hole with players who complement Giannis, because I think it's sort of the LeBron James effect as well. Like you put guys in there that can work well around Giannis, and it can take you all the way to the promised land. So, they've got some decisions to make, and
big decisions.
Could be Chris Middleton on the way out.
I'm not saying Drew Holiday is a bad closer by any means. I'm just
what
saying.
What were you saying then?
I'm saying he can't be a number one closer. I'm not relying on Drew Holiday to close out a game for me.
See, I don't know if I'm relying on Chris Middleton.
I
really, when he's on the court and when he's firing, that's great. But there's just too many of these down periods. I think he can get younger and get better than what you're getting from Middleton. But
Chris
a
Middleton,
great point of debate.
Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and maybe another pick for Dame.
It's on the table.
Oh, I don't know about that. Maybe.
Bobby Porter steps up, play a small ball 5 there.
Yeah.
How fun would that be?
That
but
would
again,
be
or just Chris and Bobby for Dame. That's not a bad offer.
If you're the Blazers, I know we're going into a rabbit hole here. If you're the Blazers, are you taking that?
That's why I thought we should add another piece onto it, because I don't think
you'd have to get some draft assets.
You'd have to.
But
one to think
because
about.
then the Blazers could offload Nurkic as well. In another trade. I do not mind that. No. Is this one you've just drummed up in the
just
head?
Just off the top of the dome.
That's fair play. The old trade machine in the
particularly if, like, as Lee was saying, like Drew Holiday, is he going to be the number one closer? You take that out of the equation when Dame comes into the picture.
Dame's
that's huge. That's a league altering. I like it. There we go. If any of the front office officials from the Blazers or the Bucks are listening, there you go. Get my man here.
Like that is, I don't want to hang on this for too long, but that is totally on the cards with this first round exit. That's one of the silver linings, is this roster could shake up.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff, fellas. Let's move ahead. Last but certainly not least, during the week, the league officially crowned a new MVP after being the bridesmaid the last couple of years. He finally received that elusive title. Joel Embiid, a phenomenal in season, received the award on Wednesday. Helped guide the 76ers to an overall regular season record of 54-28, whilst having the highest scoring season of his career, averaging 33 points, whilst also adding 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block per game to go with it. Guys, it wasn't as close as what I thought it'd be. I don't know if you've seen the official numbers. It was quite a comprehensive win. Jokic in second, Giannis rounding it out in third, Tatum in fourth, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in fifth. But yeah, it was quite a comfortable victory there for Embiid. More so than what I thought it'd be.
Yeah, it was one of those ones I thought to myself that if he didn't win it this year, like he probably wasn't going to win it at all throughout the course of his career. He's just had such an outstanding season, and he probably is a bit unlucky to not have won at least one more in the past. But where do you sit on? There's been people talking about since he's won this, the whole voter fatigue around not voting for Nikola Jokic, because in many people's eyes, as great of a season as Joel Embiid had, I think there was sort of like a general consensus. I think that Jokic was probably
he'd done it all
MVP.
before.
Yeah,
exactly.
But because he's won it multiple times in the past, it was almost as if, let's give it to Joel Embiid. Like it.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Really, like if you go back, and I was listening to a podcast a little while ago, breaking it down, all the winners kind of versus LeBron. LeBron could have eight MVP awards, and that's nothing short of a lie there. I don't like the voter fatigue thing. I think if you're the best player in the league, he helped them to the best overall record within the league.
Exactly.
So do you think Jokic should have won it?
So the thing is, I don't know if it's a popular or unpopular opinion, but I think I would have gone Jokic.
I think I probably would have as well.
Yeah. But I can also sort of it makes sense to me what's happened in terms of I can see the voter fatigue coming into full effect with this one.
It's weird because I think Joel Embiid deserved the MVP, but I feel like it's like, thank God that's out of the way. Like, I'm not saying it was a pity MVP, but it's like, oh, that's over and done with now. We don't need to like have discussions about him not winning.
A great point, Lee. But I agree with you, Ro. I think there was, and we've seen it with Giannis as well. Even last year, he probably could have been a real contender for it. You know, that voter fatigue certainly comes into play. It's a shame for the player who it refers to.
Yep.
I think all three of them. I wouldn't have been mad if any three won it. I think all three of them could have deserved it.
Isn't it incredible? The rise of the big man within the league.
International big man.
The international big men are running the league at the moment, you know. It's for as prevalent as guards are in the league and 3-point shooting, it's the big men who are claiming all the accolades at the moment. So
here's one for you just off the top.
Yes, sir.
In your guys' minds, who is the next international big man to set the league alight?
Would it be stupid to say Boban? Big Bobby Marjanovic? No, I think
I'm thinking of one who hasn't even entered.
It's got to be shit. Not shit. It's got to be Wembanyama.
I think so.
I'm really going to ride the train, and I'd love to know what the odds are going into the season for him to claim Rookie of the Year and MVP in his first year. Imagine that.
I wonder what that would be paying.
He would have, like, as a rookie, for him to win MVP, I think he'd have to average, whichever teams he goes to would have to make the playoffs at a minimum.
Yep.
And he'd probably have to average 35, 10 rebounds, maybe
it's not happening.
3 blocks.
Poor guy has so much pressure on his back, you know.
I think it could happen.
No,
I think he's that good.
Come on.
I think he's going to be great, but
I think if he doesn't snap a leg like he's a string bean, you know, it's kind of hypocritical of me to say I don't have a lot of muscle on me. But he is, like, if he can keep his body healthy, he is a freak.
Yeah.
I am so keen to see him in the league. I can't wait to see which team he goes to. Certainly looking forward to doing that very soon once the season wraps up, discussing everything surrounding the NBA draft.
I'm with you.
Nevertheless, let's move ahead, lads.
The Daily Dribble.
Okay, as I said at the top of the show, today's just going to be a bit of a general chit-chat discussing things that have caught our mind across the second round thus far. Just to recap, all the viewers out there, at the moment, the 4 series currently stand. The Knicks and Heat sit at 1 apiece. Boston and Philly sit at 1 apiece. Denver and Phoenix. Denver lead that one 2-0. And Warriors and Lakers currently sit at 1 apiece as well. So a lot of the road teams getting victories in these one, lads. Where would you like to start, Lee?
I'll start with Suns versus Nuggets, just because, as I alluded to last week, I'm barracking for the Suns for the remainder of the season.
Got to come from behind here.
It's been a shame to say, nonetheless. I know both games were played in Denver, but that first game where I think it was 97-87, the Suns could have taken that game.
They bottled that. That fourth quarter was horrendous.
And the games you want to take advantage of are the games that your Denver's role players, and I say role players, everyone outside of Nikola Jokic, the games Suns should be winning are the games that they're not performing well. In that game one, they weren't performing well. Jamal Murray had an off game. Michael Porter Jr. did as well. I think a lot of it, or some of it, comes down to some of the shots that the Suns are taking. You know, KD and Book are known for taking these highly difficult shots, and I mean, they're good at taking them. They shoot them at a high clip. But for as impressive it is, I think that they may have some better luck by finding easier shots. And you may say, it's not that simple. How do you find easier shots? I think, no, I have the stat here. Denver were ranked 20th in turnovers per game this season at 14.5. So my recommendation is try get some of these easier shots. Pick up the pressure on these guys a bit. Pick up the intensity, force some turnovers, force some fast
transition points, fast break points. Absolutely.
They need this filler offense, because this strategy, I don't know if it's a strategy, but this gameplay of KD and Booker, you know, trying to hit these high difficult shots, it's not going to pan out as a victory for them.
I like that, and I'll tie in off the back of that. The Suns' depth has been nothing short of woeful. Chris Paul went out injured game 2 there with a groin injury. Expected at the moment from recent reports, he's going to miss games 3, 4, and potentially 5.
Yeah.
We'll see how that plays out. Groins are a notoriously tricky little spot there. But the Suns' depth is going to have to really step up. I want to rattle through a couple of numbers here in a moment from game 2. As Lee mentioned there, the Nuggets getting up 97-87 in that one. Just how that game highlighted how poor their bench production was. Between Biyombo, Craig, Payne, Lee, Wainwright, and Landale. So what have I rattled off there? I've rattled off 6 names. In game 2, these blokes combined for roughly 69 minutes of court time. Have a guess how many points combined they scored. 6 blokes, 69 minutes of court time.
And this was the low-scoring game?
It was.
Well, I think Devin Booker and KD scored 50% of it. So I'd say, I hope they got over 18 points combined. 6 dudes.
My guess would probably be around the 15 mark.
Well, neither of you are even remotely close. Between those 6 blokes in 69 minutes, they scored a combined 4 points.
Are you serious? You didn't mention campaign in that, did you?
I did.
You did. Cam.
Goodness.
4 points. Now, I think Monty Williams really missed a trick here. You signed 2 blokes at the deadline, TJ Warren and Terrence Ross. Now, granted, I know they're not great defenders, but they are blokes who will get you a bucket.
Yeah,
it wasn't so long ago. Even during this season, once he was picked up, TJ Warren could get you a bucket. I think they've both got to get minutes. Like that stat, when I did a bit of research and had a look at the numbers, added up all the minutes, that's criminal.
Why aren't they getting minutes? I know we're mentioning the defensive side of things, but
I think it's partly that because they're just expecting KD and Book and Ayton to be those scorers.
Yeah, but when you've got 4 points among 6 guys off the bench, you have to start looking elsewhere. There are other options who can put the ball in the bucket at will at
Especially with
times.
Chris Paul out now. It is going to be critical.
That probably, and I hate to say it, but that probably will be the downfall of these guys, I reckon.
To be fair, the way it's played out these last 2 games, and we kind of, if you want to amend any predictions or how you see it playing out now, I could see this one, as scary as it is to say, I could see this being a sweep. I just don't think. I think Ayton has been poor. I just think Jokic and co, Porter's looked great. Jamal Murray's looked great across the playoffs thus far, not just this series. Aaron Gordon, KCP, he was a real key for that game too, hitting those big threes late in the fourth. I just think they're too good. The Suns just look out of gas, look out of options. They look essentially a 2-man team, especially with Chris Paul going down now. I don't know if there's much hope.
It really hurts. And the other thing is, DeAndre Ayton is the smallest big man, as weird as that sounds, as I've seen in a long time. His just lack of care and hunger for the boards. I know he's coming up against Nikola Jokic, who's just like a legitimately all-time talent. But at the end of the day, his effort just doesn't seem to be there. And I tell you what, if you're coming up against Nikola Jokic and your effort is lacking the way that his effort's lacking, you're going to get found out. And Nikola has absolutely, in every aspect, eaten him alive in these first few games.
It's not even like Jokic is a great rebounder because he's athletic and he can jump high. He just reads where the ball's going to go better than. And did you guys see that video of DeAndre Ayton on the court standing behind the backboard while KD was fighting for his life trying to get the board off Jokic?
I missed that, but the sixth thing is, you made a really good point about Jokic doesn't have that athleticism. He reads the ball so well. Then you've got that guy in Aaron Gordon who can get you a defensive board with his athleticism. I just at the minute they're playing a 8-man roster. They've got the 2 Browns and Green coming off the bench. They just look so more structured, well-rounded, know their kind of identity, what they're getting from each player. Because I know at the minute the Suns, if we were to revisit predictions, I think I had the Suns in 7. What I've seen the first 2 games, I'm almost going to call it. I reckon it could be time to get the brooms out. I know it's premature. We're going back to Phoenix.
Yeah, I know. It's funny how a week in basketball can completely change your decision from 7 games to 4 sweep.
Shit.
But you can only go off what we've seen so far, and I think it might be over much sooner than we thought it would be.
Not only that, but going off from what I've seen in this series. I mean, in all the series, it looks like the Suns are going. I mean, it looks like the Nuggets are going to the finals. In my
they
opinion,
look good.
I
Look
mean,
good.
Jokic just makes it look so effortless. It doesn't even look like he's playing in a playoff game. He's smiling. He's smug.
Will
Smug
Phoenix?
Joker.
Will Phoenix, as I just mentioned, Chris Paul looking at missing games 3, 4, and potentially 5. Will he get back for this series, or is it going to be over quickly? Do you fellas think? Do you reckon Denver get it done in 4 or 5 games here, or is it going longer?
Tell you what, Nick, according to your prediction, we won't see old CP3 till next season, which is a real possibility, I think, now that they've taken those first 2 games and look so dominant. I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen the last of CP3 this season.
Wow, huge. Lee, do you agree, or do you think they've? We're going back. We're going back to Phoenix. They're still in it.
It's going to be very dependent on this next game and how Phoenix play at home, whether it's as big as an advantage as they'd want it to be. But I mean, if they lose that next game, it's going to be a sweep.
They've unequivocally, I think, got to win the next 2. Even if they win the next one at 2-1, if they lose it in 3-1, not many teams in NBA history have come back from 3-1, and I don't think Phoenix is going to be able to do it against Denver. So
no.
Huge stuff out of that series there. Ro, what would you like to talk about today?
Well, I think it'd be remiss of me not
to... a group therapy session. Tell me your feelings. What would you like to talk about?
Well, it'd be remiss of me not to talk about my Boston Celtics against the Philadelphia 76ers. And
yes.
Tell you what, this series has been a little bit odd for mine so far. Like, we come into that opening game, Philadelphia 76ers don't have Joel Embiid, and me as the Boston fan, I'm thinking, let's get it.
Paul Reed is going to be eaten.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be a pretty comprehensive win without the MVP playing. And tell you what, we saw absolute prime James Harden.
Vintage.
And that is what James Harden is capable of when he is leading a team.
Yes, sir.
And it's scary to think that, like, potentially if he's not in Philadelphia going forward, he could potentially get back to doing similar things, which is crazy. But that was just an all-time great playoff performance with their backs against the wall against Boston Celtics.
Deep in the trenches.
Great all throughout the regular season. That opening game did not go the way that I anticipated, but it was entertaining nonetheless.
Can I ask you a question about that? So Harden cooked throughout the entire game.
He did.
Now I want to speak about that 3 that he hit late on, essentially the dagger 3. You've got a bloke out there in PJ Tucker who did not score a single point, take a single shot in this game. Not one. Like
he didn't take a shot.
No, he was literally a witch's hat. Nothing. Not a look, not a cracker. Waste of space. PJ Tucker. There you go.
Yeah.
What you've got out in the perimeter there, Horford up against Harden.
Yes.
Harden's got the dancing shoes on, cooks him, sinks the 3 over him. Like that was a decent contest from Horford.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Would you not think that you'd possibly look at doubling him in that position? Make the witch's hat in the corner who hasn't had a shot, who's not in rhythm. Make him do something.
You would think so, wouldn't
I
you?
found it perplexing as to why they didn't run a double for the guy who'd up to that point plus 40 points. Like I just didn't understand that play.
What was the score again? Was it?
They were down 1 at that time, I believe, Philly.
I think it's too risky to run a double there. I wouldn't have. I get it. I would have run a double if it was like if there was 6 minutes left to go in the 4th. But I wouldn't run a double.
I think it's a difficult one because I think
the big man Horford, like he moved well and he got a good contest on it, but like
I think
Harden's cooking.
You almost just have to cop it on the chin if it's anyone else but Harden. But because he was on absolute fire that night, it was a little bit inexcusable, really, because we needed to put more effort into preventing that, because that was always going to happen, wasn't it? Like,
once a mismatch was there,
I
think you had to call a second defender over.
Yes.
I just found it a bizarre play at the end there that, certainly could have swung that game. So,
yes.
But you boys bounced back in quite emphatic fashion, did you not?
We did bounce back, and I tell you what.
As all good teams do.
Yes, absolutely. And we would have been looking on the ropes if we had have gone down, but we looked pretty in control for the majority of this game, which was quite pleasing to see, because momentum's a funny thing in basketball. And like, if you get a few games, in a row, particularly away from home, geez, you're in a lot of trouble. But yeah, in this game, I guess the standouts, particularly off the bench, was Malcolm Brogdon. He had 23 off the bench. He was a significant contributor. Obviously, got a few more minutes because, well, we didn't really need the starting five for as much as
JT in foul trouble quite heavily in that one.
Yep, he was too. I think he only ended up with, what was it, seven points in the end.
Isn't that crazy to see such ridiculous. A comprehensive win and your go-to guy score 7 points? Jaylen Brown was tremendous as well in that one.
Yeah.
We saw Embiid return in this one. To be honest, it kind of just looked as if he was playing for the sake of getting some minutes just to reacquit himself with playoff basketball once again. They looked quite happy just to take the split, I think. You know, I don't think it was really about winning, just getting Embiid familiarised with it. But that brings me to my question I have for you two fellas. Now, he certainly didn't look 100%. He didn't look as aggressive or like MVP Embiid. In Game 3, if he's not 100% healthy, like if he says 50 to 75%, to Philly sit him. The Philly just go with what they did in Game 1. Paul Reed, enable Harden to be that number one guy. Maxey steps up as a number 2, where it looked they looked diverse in that Game 1. Game 2, they looked stagnant. You know, just with Embiid coming in, you know, kind of Harden went into his shell a little bit. Maxey stepped back a little bit. They were just trying to play around Embiid. Whereas Game 1, it was quite fluid and dynamic. So what do you reckon?
I didn't even think of that being an option. And I mean, there's no doubt that he's not going to be 100%. He's not going to be 100% probably for the whole series. And I honestly would go ahead and take that advice on board if I was the 76ers.
Isn't this huge? Sitting the newly crowned MVP of the league in Game 3 of the playoffs in the second round, you're sitting the MVP. And to be honest, I agree. I don't think if he's 100%, I think you try and save him for Game 4. If you can take it back to Boston with a 2-2 split, try and get one more on the road, I think you go for it. And just with the way they looked in Game 1, Paul Reed was more than adequate. Not so much in the first half. In that second half, really stepped up. But there you go, Lee. You're on board with that.
I'm on board with it.
And make that 3 out of 3.
Oh, this is huge.
I think it's absolutely been a luxury for the Philadelphia 76ers to win that first game, and now they'll have not only the belief that they can do it, but you know, like having a player like Joel Embiid, the MVP, out in a defining series, but then having James Harden to rely on in his absence is just such a huge benefit for them. And I think they might do that with Embiid not anywhere close to full strength.
It was almost a really great reminder. And I think over the last couple of years, you know, I certainly have, don't know about you guys, we forget a little bit that Harden was the league's best scorer. He's one of the greatest NBA scorers in history. He was putting up, you know, records and stat lines rarely ever seen before. And he's, you know, as his games develop, the older he's got, you know, moving from destination to destination, his games become a little more refined, more of a pass first, almost point guard. But again, you've just like this game, it just shows you how devastating he can be. That was really a joy to watch. And it was great to see him do that, like as a number one guy again, because since he went to Brooklyn, he was playing second or third fiddle behind KD and Kyrie, coming over to Philly behind Embiid, no doubt. But when he's a number one guy, it looked good.
It looked really good.
This may surprise you, but behind Kevin Durant, he's my second favorite player.
Is he really?
Is KD your favorite player?
KD is, and then JH.
Do you reckon he has birds living in his beard? Or, you know, like, do you reckon he comes a week later, he's got the comb going through it, and he finds, you know, half a Dorito from the week before or something?
Yeah, a few ones from the strip club, probably.
I think. A couple of $1 bills in there. I'd love to see him shaved again just to see what it looked like.
Oh, geez, that'd be a rough head to come out after all these years.
Wouldn't it? What? Like, it's just incredible. It's incredible longevity of that beard.
Yes,
it's really startling. But for you guys, we spoke about potentially the sweep in the previous series. In this particular one, how are you feeling about it now? I said initially Philly in 7. I've lost a little bit of faith after seeing what Boston did to them in that game too, especially if Embiid's not at 100%. I'm going to stick with it though, Philly in 7, but it's shaping up as a great series.
Yeah, I think I'm still backing my boys in 7. And
some people saying it could be Boston in 5 now. Just seeing what they did. against Philly in that game 2 and potentially Embiid being out, there's the possibility that people think it could be a gentleman's sweep.
I don't think so. I don't think so. And that's me with my green glasses on as well. Like, I think Philadelphia, and we've seen in that game 1, you can't rest on your laurels even when Joel Embiid is out, because James Harden's a legitimate superstar and he can get the win for them.
Lee, how do you see it playing out?
I think I might have had the Philly. I don't know who I had. I have now Boston in 6. I think for how good of a team, how good of a defensive team Boston is, I think Joel Embiid would need to give it his all, and just physically right now, due to injuries, he can't do that. I wouldn't put it past James Harden to have another 40-point game, but I don't think he will. I'm gonna go Boston in 6.
Very good. There you have it. Let's transition to our next series. 2 to go. The Miami Heat and the New York Knickerbockers. Bing bong. Here we go. Poised at 1 apiece. The Heat took game 1 on the road, 108-101 on Monday. And just like that, it kind of got me thinking again, have we this season been sleeping on the Heat a little bit? Now, they're a team that hasn't been making waves. They've been a little bit lackluster throughout periods. But it just seems as if they've got, and I guess it's the reason because we've slept on them. They don't have a really top tier guy. They've got a lot of high level players, looking at Jimmy, Hero, Bam, Lowry, the acquisition of K-Love. They don't have that out and out, top 5 player in the league, but they do.
They do in the playoffs.
In the playoffs. Jimmy Butler, it's incredible. And, I was trying to think about this in my head. Are there any other players more so, do you think, in the league that turn up, change their game so drastically from the regular season to the playoffs? Like, they turn up more than Jimmy in the playoffs.
No, I don't think so. And he's gained that reputation, hasn't he, of being a guy who in the regular season is in third gear and comes into the playoffs and he turns into a legitimate superstar.
He's cut from a different cloth, this guy. It was fantastic to see that game 1. He was a little more quiet, 25 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. He sat out game 2 with an injury there, hoping to see him back for game 3. But the Heat, have we been sleeping on them, fellas?
I'll tell you, we sleep. If we're talking about sleeping on them, as in we forget that they turn it up to this next level in the playoffs, then yes, I've been sleeping on them if that's the case. I forget that last year they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals versus Boston. I didn't assume that they were going to ramp it up and beat the Bucks this year in the first round. So yes, if that's the case, I have been sleeping on them.
Do you think, Rose, so as it's currently sits, 1 apiece, Julius Randle missed game 1, in which the Heat won that one. Game 2, Jimmy Butler missed. Randle came back for that one. With things now heading down to South Beach, where's this series poised at the minute, do you think?
Well, I think it's...
on a knife's edge, it feels.
Yeah, I think Miami are certainly in the box seat. I think it's so important to hold home court.
Got the split.
And to get the split is just an enormous result.
Especially in Madison Square Garden. We spoke about it last week. Going into the series, that could well be a real contributing factor, because I think I had the Knicks in 6, if memory serves correct. And, they've dropped one. Dropped one at home. It's huge.
Yeah, so that could make the difference, because if the Miami Heat hold home court, then they are well and truly in the box seat to win this series. And I think there's a good chance that might happen.
I just think Jalen Brunson had a great season. Actually, lower votes, was actually on the MVP ballot there. Julius, he was right down the bottom there. Got a couple of 5th place nods, I believe. Julius Randle coming back, he can get you a bucket. RJ Barrett has looked better over the last month or so of basketball, but I just think, without a doubt, the best guy, and I think we said this line last week, the best guy in this series is Jimmy Butler. And I initially said Knicks in 6. I think I'm going to go Heat in 6 now, because I am changing my tune just because of Jimmy being that good. He's hoping he's back 100% for game 3. But if you've got this guy is honestly willing to die on that court, I don't think the Knicks have that guy. No. And to be fair, there's not many players in the league who you would realistically believe would give their life, lay on their sword on that court. He is one of them.
No doubt. He's made of that same sort of stuff that Kobe had. He's made of that same sort of stuff that MJ had. Just that killer mentality. Might not be anywhere near the players that they were, but goodness me, the mindset's there. And that can make the difference.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Lee, for yourself, do you still see this one? Because I think you had Heat, didn't you? Or did you come on board with me on the Knicks train?
I can't remember.
You were on the Knicks.
I was on the Knicks.
You were on the Knicks.
And I'm staying on the Knicks train. I think it's getting a bit too overlooked that the Heat are without Hero and without Oladipo.
They beat the Bucks without Hero.
Yeah.
And
VO was a non-factor.
But then you put on top of that Jimmy Butler, is he going to be able to perform to the level that on a sprained ankle?
Yeah, he'll be right.
Yeah. Because
he was walking
this
around
isn't
New York the other day. He's all right.
This isn't going to be over in 5. This series, if the Heat are going to win, it's going to go to 7. I don't think on that sprained ankle, for as tenacious as he is in the playoffs, I feel like he'll want to be that tenacious, but I don't think physically, similar to Joel Embiid, that he'll be able to.
So if it's to go so you believe the Knicks will pick up one in Miami then over the next 2 games?
I think so. I think the Heat have a lot of trouble keeping the Knicks out of the paint and scoring in the paint, because don't quote me on this stat, but I think it was over 50% of their scoring, the Knicks, came from in the paint.
The problem is, though, Mitchell Robinson has been disgusting. He's been garbage, purely hot steaming garbage.
This series.
Yeah, he has. He's been unplayable. Hence, game 2, we saw a lot more of Isaiah Hartenstein. Tell you what, if he's your centre, for as great as he played in game 2, I don't think he's the guy taking you to the promised land. No. I'm not going to put I'm not talking
about Mitch Robinson in the paint. I'm talking about Jalen Brunson making his way to the paint.
But I just think now, like after watching it, I don't think they can win with him, with really either of them on the court. For as I said, Hartenstein was better in that game too. But like, if that's your starting centre,
it's not a great look.
If you go a smaller lineup and have a Josh Hart and play with shooters around him, they're going to get eaten. I don't know. It's
always been that thing, I think, with Mitch. Who is it again?
Mitch Robinson.
Hartenstein. Mitch Robinson.
Robinson. Yeah, Robinson. Yeah, geez, I had an absolute mind blank.
The old light switch just got flicked off there.
It did.
Reboot.
It's always been the thing with him that he is a little bit one-dimensional, and like the fact of the matter is throughout the course of his career so far, he's been quite a solid defensive player, but apart from that, he doesn't really provide you with much. And in today's NBA, your big man has to have a few different aspects to his game, or else you're going to get found out. And he gets in foul trouble, which is the big one as well.
You're playing against Bam, who's slippery. Like, he's a big guy. He's not as big as some other centers, but he's athletic. He's crafty. He's drawing these fouls and getting them into Robinson into foul trouble early, which is huge. So, yeah, I've changed my tune.
Because what's the lineup now? It's Brunson, RJ Barrett,
Randall. I think they need to play more Quentin Grimes. They need more shooting at the minute because they're just not knocking down threes or shots as much as they certainly need to. And again, I think there's possibly more opportunity available for Quickly. But at the moment, their 3-point shooting's just deserted them. So, yeah, to start with, they started with Josh Hart playing the point guard role the other day. Brunson, Robinson, Randall, and Barrett. Hartenstein coming off the bench there. Grimes, Quickly, and Tobin making up the supporting cast. So I don't think it looks great at the minute. If I was a New York Knicks fan, and especially losing one at home, I would be very concerned.
Yeah,
I just want to see the Eastern Conference Finals at the Garden. I think.
Imagine the scenes. I reckon they'd bring the literal roof down. I think if they were to lose, they would certainly. To be honest, I think either way there'd be riots in the street, win, lose, or draw.
I think bigger riots if they won. To be honest with you.
Yeah. Like imagine the scenes, like as we've referred to so many times, that the infamous Bing Bong call, and that was in game 1 of the regular season against the Celtics. Game 1 of a regular season. Imagine what would happen making the conference finals, and
Gee.
God forbid the NBA finals.
This series must be like the longest flight, right? Like, God, you'd hate that series. Miami to New York
Phoenix
and vice
and
versa.
Denver, Philly and Boston aren't too bad.
Well, Miami to New York been a long flight,
isn't it?
No, it's not that. No,
not
it's
that far.
long.
It'd be longer from Denver to Phoenix, wouldn't it?
Denver. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There you go, fellas. Let's transition to the fourth and final series. Not a great day to be wearing this Lakers jumper at the moment. But the series between the Golden State Warriors and the LA Lakers currently sits at 1 apiece. The Lakers grinding out a very hard-fought victory in Game 1 before the reigning defending champions of the NBA responded in quite an emphatic fashion today, just absolutely crushing the Lakers.
Yep.
Much to my chagrin, despite a really good first quarter from the Lakers, they were up by 7 at quarter time. I tell you what, like, it didn't just go downhill. They literally took a step off a cliff and just plummeted. Like, I think is it Newton's law of gravity. I think you fall at 10 meters per second. They were going far quicker than that. Like, it
they
was
had
horrendous.
Tied to their feet, didn't they? After that first,
like, it was. Forgive me, the actual score. I need to just double check, like, because I feel like I was dreaming before when I saw it. They ended up losing this one 127 to 100. So in the second quarter, they got outscored by 18. In the third quarter, 19, and then the fourth quarter they won 3. But it was purely garbage time. I don't think any of the starters really played a moment in the fourth quarter.
No.
But this series as well, fellas, how do we feel about this one? What we've seen so far, the Lakers getting the split. Today we saw the Warriors go with a slightly different lineup, starting Mr. Green.
Yes, didn't mind.
Draymond Green at the center, but also starting Jermichael Green at the power forward position there.
With this series, I don't know if it's going to be a case of who's better, but I think it might be more of a case of who wears down first. You know, LeBron's 38 and playing on a dud foot, and
he looked good to start with, though. He came out hot. He was the only one who could make a shot.
Yeah, but look how it ended up. And then Curry, 35. He played, I think, 39 or 40 minutes in that Game 7, and they took it to Game 7. He's obviously tired. They're all tired.
Good to have a game like today, then.
It was. I mean, Clay was on one today, but
Clay was running hot.
Clay
was like
another
reminiscent
guy
of
who
Game
steps
6
up.
Clay.
Yeah, he does.
It's hard when the
8 of 11 from 3. Sorry, just quickly. Clay today shooting at 72, nearly 73% from 3. Like, it just crushes you.
It speaks to what I was just going to say. Is it's hard to beat such a high volume 3-point scoring team because leads can just blow out of the water from out of nowhere.
I know.
If even one of the 3, and I say one of the 3 is in Steph, Clay, and Paul, turn it on. It's pretty much curtains because
the worry is, though, Wiggins can shoot it. Jermichael Green was knocking down 3s today. Draymond, not his real strong suit, but can knock it. Everyone can get you a 3, which is why they're such a well-rounded team. And it's concerning because this season, like, LeBron made a couple today. Since the playoffs started, he has been just tragic from 3. And the Lakers unit as a whole this season have been poor from 3. Rui, in fairness, was good today from 3. Going against the Warriors, it's concerning.
I think one of the Lakers' saving graces is they've probably been one of, if not the best defensive teams in the playoffs this far. So I think that that plays a part. But I'm having real difficulty in picking a winner out of these two.
I seem to think, and I said this last week, I was going to be won and lost with AD. Game 1 had a fantastic showing. Today was horrible. 11.7 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 of 11 from the field. But looked worse than that. Yeah. Like, the shots he was taking, it was really concerning. And I really like the way Steve Kerr made that switch today, putting Kevon Looney on the bench, shaking things up, playing a smaller ball lineup, and they just got more shots. They just got more shots up, got more 3s up, and in the numbers game, it just blew out very quickly.
And it was a very ballsy move, I think, from Steve Kerr, because you look at Looney in that first game, I think he had 20 boards, didn't he? Like, in that first game. And then
he did.
And then
he got monstered a little bit.
He did get monstered, but, like, at the end of the day, 20 boards is 20 boards. Like, and then to have it, like, it's not what I'm saying is it's not often you have a bloke getting 20 boards, and then I guess his basketball IQ, Steve Kerr, is so good that he's gone, I don't care that he's had 20 boards in the first game. We're going to mix it up the second game, clearly because it didn't work in the first game. And, you know, we've seen the results. But the thing with the Golden State Warriors for mine is, and it's what we were mentioning just earlier, is the fact that they've got so many guys who can step up. And so there's a lot of next soldier mentality up for this team. Like, they probably only need, I think, maybe 2 of those 4 main guys in Steph, Clay, Paul, and Andrew Wiggins to step up offensively for them to have a really good chance of winning the game. But if any more than those 2 step up, they're probably winning more often than not. So they're such a difficult team, and I've said it time and time again. But when you've got teams like this who have been there and done that,
championship pedigree,
it's going to make a difference in these games. And it was really good for the Lakers to get that first game on the road, though, because if not, I'd sort of be worrying a little bit for the rest of this series.
Question for you, Nick.
Please.
Does it scare you that your win could have been a loss if Jordan Poole had hit that 3, whereas today you were blown out?
Oh, damn, he was going for the full piss missile.
I don't think it was a bad shot.
I don't think it was a bad shot.
No.
I think you would still probably prefer Curry take a shot,
Definitely.
even being double teamed.
Yes.
I'll come back to your point there, Lee. Oh, no, I'll start with that. It does worry me.
Yes.
It does worry me because it could very, very easily be 2-zip. They gave up in that game 1. I think it was an 11 or a 14-point run. It might have stretched to the game looked effectively done. Like they had it pretty handily wrapped up, and they just could not score.
No.
And my concern, the word I was going to use a moment ago, is consistency. I think the Warriors are a more consistent team with more consistent players with more consistent output.
It was a 5 count.
You got the 5. There we go. I'm going for a new high score. But with that, like I feel their players have a higher floor. Whereas with the Lakers, so D'Angelo Russell, he can get you a bucket, sure thing. He got 30 points the other day against the Grizzlies. Looked great doing it. But he can also, he can put up some absolute bricks and just derail the whole offense. Likewise, Vanderbilt shot pretty poorly today. AD had a shocker. There's Reeves as well. Reeves has been pretty poor the first 2 games, in particular game 2. I feel like the Lakers' floor is lower, which worries me. I think both teams' ceilings are about the same, but the Warriors are operating in a higher overall area, which is my worry at the minute. I'm going to stick true to the cause.
You have to.
I've got to. And getting that one on the road certainly helps. Lakers in 7, but I'm considerably more concerned after seeing today's showing.
It's a great point. I love that point from you. Who is going to take the series? I mean, I want Lakers to take it, but I don't think they will. I think Warriors are going to get on top.
If the Warriors win, I'm going to... No, I'll save that for next week. No, don't worry.
What were you going
to remember it?
You have to bite your tongue.
I'm going to... If the Warriors win this series, I'm picking them for the title.
Yeah, well, I'm not writing them off by any means either.
And that's huge given the way Denver are going. So, but I'll have a little more analysis on that in a couple of weeks' time. So, Ro, where do you see this one going?
As I said before, that game 1 win was really vital for the Los Angeles Lakers because it makes this a series when I sort of didn't think it would be, that good.
Had to get one.
Didn't they? But yeah, all the points that we've just touched on leads me to think that the Warriors will get up in this one. I think they will probably get up in around 6.
Yep.
There's just too many dangerous weapons on that Golden State Warriors team. I know the Los Angeles Lakers have got some absolute superstars as well, but I think there's just a few more on that Golden State, and it's going to be a little bit too much, unfortunately, in my opinion.
I hate to hear you say it, but did you say the Lakers last week?
No, I think I said...
You said Warriors.
Was it?
Warriors, you said Lakers.
I think I said Lakers.
Okay. Well, there you go. We're going back to LA, baby. Game 3 coming up there. Can't wait. We've touched on all 4 series. All 4 series still have so much to play out. Incredibly exciting. Every game there's so many storylines, so much hinges on each result. I feel like all 4 of these series I kind of have retracted now because I said get the brooms out for the Denver Phoenix series, but all 4 series you could see going deep and the full length here. So, as content creators, as basketball fans, for any neutral fans out there, what a time to be alive. It is fantastic. Guys, continue to stay up to date with all of our socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, to get the latest news from not only the NBA, but also the NBL in the off-season as it breaks. Very exciting to see the signing of Junior Madut the other day to the Jack Jumpers.
Very exciting.
From the Phoenix there. Very exciting.
Yeah.
We're starting to see now the rosters take shape over the next, it's still probably a couple of weeks away from the NBL show returning. Certainly enjoying a bit of off time there, but nevertheless, don't fear. We will keep you up to date with all the latest news from there.
Lovely.
Guys, from Lee, Ro, and myself, we hope you've had a fantastic week. Continue to have another fantastic week, enjoying all the action still to unfold. And from the team here, we can't wait to break it down all again next week. Till then, take care.